Story for improving your listening skills. The Mountain Adventures of Fernando, Kalile, and Nina. The summer sun hung high in the sky, its warm golden rays stretching over the rolling hills and tall trees. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers. For Fernando, the summer vacations had always been a time to escape the mundane routine of school life and immerse herself in adventure. This summer, however, felt different. It felt like a beginning, like something unforgettable was just around the corner. She had decided to spend her vacation with her two best friends, Kalile and Nina. The three had known each other since they were children, growing up together in a small village at the foot of the towering Greenmount Ridge. Over the years, their bond had only deepened, and though they had each taken their own paths, the mountains had always called them back. This summer, they decided to take a hike up to the peak of Greenmount, a mountain that loomed over their village like a silent guardian. They had heard stories of its beauty and mystique, of its ancient forest that was said to be enchanted, and of the wildflower fields that covered its slopes in vibrant patches of color. But none of them had ever ventured so far up the mountain. It had always been a place of legend. Now they were determined to make their own story there. Chapter 1. The Start of an Adventure. Fernando stood by the old stone bridge that crossed the stream near her house. Her backpack was slung over one shoulder, packed with snacks, water, and a few essentials. The morning mist was still hanging low over the valley, and she could hear the distant call of birds as they flitted between the trees. Kalile was already there, waiting, her fiery red hair tied back in a messy bun, a look of excitement on her freckled face. "Ready for this?" Kalile asked, her voice filled with eager anticipation. Fernando nodded, her heart racing with both excitement and a bit of nervousness. "It's about time we did something like this." From behind, they heard a familiar voice calling their names. Nina, the calm and thoughtful one of the group, appeared at the end of the trail leading from the village. She was tall, with dark brown hair that shimmered like the night sky, her deep eyes holding a quiet determination. "I hope you didn't start without me," Nina said with a playful smile, adjusting her own backpack. "Of course not," Kalile teased. "We were waiting for you to show up with your perfectly packed bag." Nina laughed softly, the sound like a melody in the crisp morning air. "Let's get going. The mountain won't wait for us." Chapter 2. Into the Forest. The path up Greenmount was steep at times, winding through dense forests of ancient oak and birch. As they walked, the world around them seemed to hum with life. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of damp earth and the promise of something magical. As they ascended, Fernando felt the weight of her worries and responsibilities from home fall away. There was something about being here, surrounded by the timeless quiet of the mountain, that made everything seem simpler. The rhythmic crunch of their boots on the dirt trail was the only sound for a long while, and they spoke little, content in the peacefulness of the journey. After an hour of steady climbing, they reached a small clearing where a trickling stream formed a small pool. The sunlight broke through the canopy of leaves, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor. It was the perfect place to rest. "I think we've earned a break," Kalile said, flopping down onto a rock by the stream. She pulled out a sandwich from her bag and offered it to the others. Nina sat beside her, pulling a book from her bag. "I think this is the perfect spot to read for a while," she murmured. Fernando gazed at the stream, mesmerized by the way the water danced over the rocks. Her mind wandered, and memories of their childhood flashed before her eyes. The three of them had always been inseparable. Whether it was climbing trees, playing hide-and-seek in the village, or simply sitting on the old swing by the river, they had shared countless adventures, both big and small. But there was something about this trip, something about being here, on this mountain, that made her feel as if they were writing a new chapter in their friendship. After a while, Kalile stood up, brushing the dirt off her pants. "Come on, let's get back on the trail. The peak's not going to reach itself." Chapter 3. The Forgotten Path. The next leg of their journey took them deeper into the mountain. The trail grew narrower and more overgrown, as if the mountain had long forgotten the footprints of travelers. "This doesn't look like a well-trodden path," Nina observed, eyeing the tangled vines that blocked their way. Kalile shrugged. "It's the shortcut, I'm sure of it." "Shortcut?" Fernando asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," Kalile said confidently. "I've heard old legends about this place. They say there's a hidden grove on the side of the mountain where the trees are older than time itself and where the air smells like summer forever." The idea of a hidden grove intrigued Fernando, and even Mina couldn't help but feel drawn to the mysterious path ahead. They continued on, navigating around thorny bushes and over gnarled roots that seemed to have a life of their own. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the forest grew darker, the trees thicker, and the air cooler. The atmosphere was almost dreamlike, as if the mountain itself had swallowed them whole. Fernando felt an odd sense of unease creeping in, but she didn't want to show it. The last thing she wanted was to worry her friends. "What if this isn't a shortcut?" she asked. "What if we're lost?" Kalile, ever the optimist, grinned. "We're not lost, Fernando. We're just on an adventure." But Nina, who had been unusually quiet for the past few minutes, stopped in her tracks and stared ahead. "Wait," she said, her voice low. "Do you hear that?" At first, Fernando didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, but then she caught it, a soft, almost imperceptible hum, like a far-off song carried on the wind. "What is that?" Fernando whispered. "I don't know," Nina replied, her eyes scanning the trees. "But it's coming from just ahead. Let's go see." Chapter 4. The Hidden Grove. They followed the sound, pushing through the underbrush and moving deeper into the forest. The path seemed to narrow until they came to a small clearing. There, in the center, was the grove Kalile had spoken of, an enchanted place where the trees towered above them like ancient guardians. Their trunks were wide and twisted, their branches thick with leaves that shimmered in the sunlight as if they held secrets. At the heart of the grove stood an enormous stone, half buried in moss and ivy. The hum seemed to come from the stone, vibrating in the air around them. As they approached, they saw strange markings etched into its surface, symbols that neither of them recognized. "This is unreal," Fernando breathed, her voice filled with awe. Kalile reached out to touch the stone, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. The moment she did, a soft light flickered around them, and for a brief second, the trees seemed to lean closer, as if listening. "What was that?" Nina asked, her voice full of wonder and caution. "I don't know," Kalile said slowly, stepping back. "But I think we've found something magical." The three girls stood there for a long while, the forest around them alive with an energy they couldn't quite explain. They didn't speak much, just soaking in the strange beauty of the grove, knowing that this moment would forever be one of the greatest memories of their lives. And as they finally turned to leave, Fernando couldn't help but feel that the mountain had shared with them something sacred, something only true friends could experience together. Epilogue, a summer to remember. As the days passed and their time in the mountains drew to a close, the memories of their adventure stayed with Fernando, Kalile, and Nina. The trip to Greenmount had been everything they had hoped for, and more. They had discovered hidden wonders, faced the unknown, and created memories that would last a lifetime. Though they would return to their separate lives, to school and responsibilities, they knew that the mountain, with all its mysteries and beauty, would always be a place they could return to in their hearts. And as they said goodbye at the foot of the mountain, Fernando smiled, knowing that the adventure they had shared would never be forgotten. It was a chapter in their friendship that had only just begun.